Hi, I'm Jamie Carter. They said the reunion was for family only. I was standing outside the Airbnb they rented, holding the pie I baked the night before, still warm, still stupid. And this is how my family uninvited me from our annual reunion. Because, in their words, we're just trying to keep things light this year. Only people who are in a good place financially. That's how they said it. Like money was a mood, like poverty was contagious. I didn't scream, didn't argue. I just stood there at the front gate of that overpriced Airbnb they rented out in the Hamptons, clutching a homemade cherry pie like it was a weapon. Or a joke. Probably both. There was a list, a printed out guest list, taped to the door like a VIP event. Names highlighted, sorted by family branch. Mine wasn't there. Neither was the name of my little apartment back in Queens. Neither was the name of the 5 years I spent taking care of our dad, while everyone else sent thoughts and prayers from their lake houses and home offices. Neither was the name of the loan I co-signed for my sister's startup when she swore it was the next Etsy. She never paid it back, but she did block me on Venmo. "You weren't supposed to come," she said when she opened the door. Her name is Caroline. She's 3 years older than me, makes 6 figures, and has never washed a dish without complaining about her manicure. "What do you mean I wasn't supposed to come?" I asked. She looked embarrassed. For herself, not for me. "Didn't you get Mom's email?" I had. The one with no greeting, no subject line. Just a forwarded Pinterest board and a line that read, "We're going to keep it intimate this year. Only immediate family and their partners." I guess I wasn't immediate enough. That night, I walked home from the train station instead of calling a cab. The pie stayed in its foil pan, unopened. My hands were still sticky from the sugar glaze I brushed on top. I live in the staff unit of a high-rise building on the east side. I'm a night concierge, part-time building manager, and unofficial problem solver for residents who can't figure out how to use the Nest thermostat or forget where they parked their Teslas. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. And it's quiet at night. You hear things. You notice things. You feel things you've been avoiding. Around 11:42 p.m., just as I was making a note to follow up on a broken dryer in Unit 806, I caught a glimpse of something on the surveillance feed. A family was checking in through the private elevator bay. A last-minute short-term lease. They booked a 3-bedroom corner unit with skyline views. Weekly rate, $12,500. I zoomed in. Caroline, and my parents, and my brother Miles, carrying designer luggage like it didn't weigh the same as my entire month's rent. They were here, in my building. Let that sink in. They had told me they were having a small gathering, just the essentials, and then showed up less than 24 hours later, at the building I worked in, and still didn't invite me. I leaned back in the chair, heart thudding. I watched them laugh as they waited for the elevator. My mom waved at the doorman like she was the Queen of New Jersey. My dad adjusted his scarf even though it was barely 60 degrees. They hadn't seen me yet. I wasn't on the main floor. I stayed behind the monitors, invisible, like always. I could have walked out, could have said something, but I didn't. Instead, I did what I've always done. I paid attention. Backstory comes differently this time. Not through memory, through access. You see, I had keys, digital ones. As staff, I could see everything. Booking notes, guest preferences, internal memos, even the cleaning logs. And my family? They'd booked under my cousin's LLC. Probably to dodge questions. Probably because Caroline knew exactly how cruel this all was and wanted to pretend it wasn't personal. It was. Unit 1003. I knew that apartment well. I lived in it once. Before I sold my half of the deed to cover a business loan my dad took out and failed to repay, he promised he'd handle it. "Trust me, Jamie," he said. "We're in this together." Turns out, together meant I'd take the fall and he'd take a vacation to Napa. Later that night, I got a call from the front desk. "There's a guest asking for a bottle of Merlot and some hypoallergenic pillows in 1003. Should I put it through?" I paused, smiled. "Absolutely. Let them know the pillows are complimentary, from management." Then I slid a note into the order. No threats, no confrontation, just 7 words. "I live here. You missed that memo." By morning, the group chat I'd been left out of was buzzing. My mom posted a story of the skyline from the balcony, caption, "Family, laughter, and views worth everything." Everything? Everything. Except me. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Anger had burned out years ago. What I felt was quieter, heavier, a sort of resigned clarity that comes only when the people who taught you about loyalty prove again that they never planned to return the favor. By 6 a.m., I was still in the control room, legs pulled up into the chair, half watching the early deliveries while sipping stale break room coffee. The surveillance feed showed 1003's hallway, quiet now. The blinds were drawn, the lights off, but I remembered every inch of that apartment, the curved balcony, the charcoal quartz countertops. The place wasn't just familiar, it was personal. I'd designed it. It was supposed to be a passion project. Back when I was working freelance in architectural visualization and picked up side work with a boutique real estate firm. I fell in love with that unit, its shape, its light. I poured hours into reworking the floor plan, made it flow better. My name wasn't on the blueprints, but the changes were mine. I lived there for almost 2 years, until my father used my name to secure a line of credit on a property he never finished building. It defaulted, quietly. No legal drama, no bankruptcy headlines. Just a pile of overdue notices and a phone call that ended with him saying, "You'll bounce back, you always do." I sold my half of the unit to cover his mess. He kept his credit score. I kept my silence. They moved on. And now, here they were, back in that same space, renting it for the week, with champagne chilling in the fridge, as if I never existed between those walls. At 9:13 a.m., I got an internal notification. Guest report from Unit 1003, requests minor AC adjustment and early housekeeping. Of course. I grabbed the master override key and headed upstairs. It was an excuse, but a justifiable one. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't even going to knock. I was there for maintenance. I paused outside the door, the same silver hardware. The small scratch near the peephole I never bothered fixing. My hand hesitated on the knob, just long enough for the irony to catch up to me. Then I turned it. The living room hit me first. It smelled like my old life, white tea candles and lemon oil. Same rug I left behind. The furniture was upgraded, more coastal chic now, but the bones were mine. They weren't there. No voices, just an open suitcase on the table. My mom's handwriting on a grocery list. And a coffee mug. My coffee mug. The one I left behind. I almost laughed. Almost. I didn't touch anything. I just walked down the hall toward the built-in bookshelf. The one I designed to fold into the wall, revealing a hidden drawer behind the bottom panel. I opened it. Still there. My name. On the original inspection forms. The building's record-keeping was terrible, and back then, no one thought to erase former resident files manually. It still listed Jamie Carter as an auxiliary owner on the fire escape plan. I took a photo, just in case. Then, for no good reason other than instinct, I left something else behind. A single sticky note, pale yellow, no name, just a line. "You're living in something I built." I returned to the staff room, heart quiet but fast. The cameras were still rolling. I didn't say a word. Until the elevator chimed at 11:06 a.m. "Jamie?" Maritza, the desk coordinator, poked her head in. "There's a Caroline downstairs asking for, a manager?" I blinked. She asked for me? She asked for someone who runs things here but isn't like the cleaning lady. Her words, not mine. Right. I stood. "Give me 2 minutes." I found her in the lobby, tapping her phone, legs crossed, sunglasses perched high on her head like she was auditioning for a Bravo show. When she saw me, her lips parted. Not recognition, confusion. She hadn't expected me. "Jamie," she said. "Wow, you work here?" I smiled slowly. "I do." There was a pause, a visible recalculation happening behind her expression. I didn't realize. That's good for you." "Thanks." She lowered her voice. "Listen, the AC in our unit is making this weird hum, and my mom is freaking out about it triggering her migraines. Can someone check it?" "I already did." "You did?" Her smile tightened. "Yep, it's running at standard levels, but I'll make sure a technician swings by just to make her feel better." There was another pause, not tension, something deeper. She looked me up and down, noticing the staff badge, the clipboard, my confidence. "You didn't say anything last night," she said. "Didn't have to," I replied. "Wasn't my party, right?" She flinched, just slightly. "It wasn't personal. It never is, until it is." Back upstairs, I sat in silence. Not victorious, not angry, just still. There's something strange about watching people walk through a space that once held your memories and pretend none of them ever happened. But here's the thing. The building remembers. And now, so do they. Ever had someone erase your part of the story, only to walk straight into your chapter? The note did its job. I didn't see the reaction directly. But at 7:04 the next morning, Caroline came down to the front desk. Her tone was syrupy, but strained. "Hey, just wondering, who has access to our apartment? Like, beyond housekeeping?" I didn't look up from my monitor. "Only registered staff, and residents, of course." She nodded. "Right, it's just, we found a note. On the fridge. No one remembers putting it there." "Oh?" I tilted my head like I was interested but not invested. She stared for a beat. "It said something about the apartment, about someone building it." I leaned in, lowered my voice. "Caroline, this is a luxury building. Sometimes residents leave messages for themselves, like affirmations, reminders. Maybe that's all it was." She hesitated. "Sure." Her smile was mechanical. Too many teeth, not enough warmth. And then she asked it. "You're not, mad at us, right?" That word, mad, itched under my skin. "I'm good," I said, calm as a sheet of ice. "Enjoy your stay." Back in the staff room, I watched the feed. I wasn't being creepy. I wasn't obsessed. I just couldn't look away. My mom spent the morning reorganizing the kitchen drawers. That used to drive me crazy, her need to fix things that weren't broken. My dad set up shop at the dining table, pretending to read the Wall Street Journal while playing solitaire on his tablet. Miles ordered Uber Eats. Twice. First for himself, then for Mom when she got overwhelmed. They looked exactly the same, and I didn't know how that made me feel. You'd think time would change people, soften them, humble them. But no. If anything, it makes the performance better. By day 3, the energy had shifted. They were whispering more, doors closing a little faster. Mom kept locking the balcony door, even in broad daylight. Caroline left the apartment for hours, always returning with a stiff smile and a new gift bag. And then something odd happened. Housekeeping called me in a panic. "Jamie, you need to see this." I walked into Unit 1003 at 4:27 p.m. Maria, our best housekeeper, was standing in the hall holding a small white bag like it had teeth. "They left this in the trash," she whispered. I peeked inside. A phone, cracked screen, still on, locked. "What's the problem?" I asked. She looked at me like I was being dense. "It's not theirs. This model's too old. No one traveling with Louis Vuitton weekenders is using a burner." I checked the case. Familiar. Yellow with a faint sunflower print. It was mine. From 3 years ago. The last phone I had before I pawned it during the worst month of my life. I blinked. "How did this get here?" I murmured. Maria stepped back. "I'm not asking questions, but maybe you should." I took the phone down to my office and plugged it in. It sparked but didn't die. After a few minutes of struggle and a YouTube tutorial on forgotten passcodes, I got in. There were only a few things still intact, some old photos, a list of notes, and one video. I clicked play. It was a clip I'd filmed in that very apartment. I was barefoot, standing in front of the bookshelf I helped design, laughing, genuinely, fully, because Miles had just dropped an entire can of cold brew on his foot and was hopping around like a cartoon character. I hadn't remembered filming it, but watching it now, I felt a lump rise in my throat. That version of me looked free, and I hadn't seen her in a long, long time. I went still, not sad, not angry, just focused. Someone had deliberately brought that phone here, not to return it, but to plant it. And the only people with access to both my past and this apartment were the ones who sat upstairs right now, eating eggs Benedict and pretending this city bent around them. They wanted me to feel haunted. They wanted control back. But they'd made a mistake. They left a trail. I printed out 3 photos from the phone, taped them silently inside the communal elevator, one with the bookshelf, one with Miles laughing, and one with me, holding up a sold sign standing in front of the building entrance 3 years ago. I signed them. History has a memory. So do walls. The next morning, Caroline came back to the desk. This time, she didn't pretend. "Jamie, what are you doing?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Maintaining transparency. It's a building policy." "You're being dramatic. And you're being evasive." "I didn't come here to fight." "Then maybe don't keep picking one." She opened her mouth, closed it, looked around as if realizing for the first time that she wasn't in control, that maybe I never was, but I'd learned how to take power without asking. That night, I stayed late, past midnight. The building was quiet except for the occasional hum of the freight elevator. Then the call came in. "Emergency request from 1003. My mom had fainted. I got there before EMTs arrived. She was awake, conscious, but pale." Caroline was pacing. Miles had disappeared. Dad sat on the couch, not speaking, just staring. "She's okay," I said after checking her pulse. "Low blood sugar. She needs to eat." "She doesn't eat when she's upset," Caroline muttered. I crouched beside my mother, looked her in the eyes. "You've lived your life building a family on performance," I said quietly. "Maybe your body's finally asking for honesty." She blinked. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing, just reached out and took my hand. For the first time in years. Have you ever found a piece of your past in the hands of someone who tried to erase it? The morning after my mother fainted, things inside Unit 1003 changed. Caroline didn't come downstairs again. Not for coffee, not for petty complaints, not to pretend she didn't know who I was. The curtains stayed drawn, and their grocery orders tripled in size, delivered contact-free, always. I knew that look. Not the fear, the guilt-fueled retreat. It wasn't new. When people like my family feel exposed, they don't reflect. They rearrange the furniture and hope no one notices the rot. It wasn't the first time I'd been expected to hold their secrets, but it was the first time I'd refused. The photographs in the elevator? Someone took them down by noon. Sloppy job, ripped at the corners, adhesive still on the glass. But that wasn't the point. I didn't expect them to stay up, I just needed them to be seen. And apparently, someone had seen them. At 3:12 p.m., I received an unexpected email. Subject, Carter renovation files, found in archive. It was from Greg, one of the engineers I used to freelance for back when I still believed in earning your place. He'd moved out of state, but we stayed in touch. The email had 2 attachments. One was a copy of a contractor's invoice, with my name listed under Design Modifications. The other was a scan of a property agreement, unsigned, but with a handwritten note in the margin, Jamie's upgrades, tracked separately for resale valuation. I stared at the screen for a long time. My name had never been on the official deed, but I'd added enough value to matter in the books. In other words, I had receipts. That night, the building held a wine and cheese mixer for preferred residents. Normally, I just set up the tables and left before the first glasses clinked. This time I stayed, in uniform, not hiding, not performing. They showed up late, of course. My parents, trailing behind Caroline like political staffers. Miles wasn't there, probably avoiding all responsibility as usual. They didn't expect to see me near the reception table, handing out building newsletters and chatting with the director of tenant relations. I caught Caroline's glance, sharp, uncertain, and smiled. "Enjoy the wine," I said as they passed. "It's from the cellar I helped select." Caroline blinked. "You?" I tilted my head. "Back when we were selecting premium tenant packages. You'd know if you read the bylaws." I didn't wait for her reply. 2 hours later, as the mixer wound down and the lights dimmed, I slipped into the back office and printed a packet. 9 pages. The invoice Greg had sent, the valuation note, a receipt for the stove I bought with my own money back when I thought this was my forever home. A photo of that same stove, now in their Instagram story, captioned, "Family meals, finally." And one last thing, a short typed letter. "To whom it may concern, the attached documents reflect design, material, and utility upgrades made by Jamie Carter, unpaid and unacknowledged, within the dwelling now listed as Unit 1003. These upgrades were made under the assumption of shared ownership and permanent residence. Their repurposing, without consent or compensation, constitutes not only breach of verbal agreement, but deliberate erasure. Consider this a reminder, not a threat. Buildings remember, so do people. I sealed it in an envelope, slid it under their door. Then I went home. The knock came at 1:47 a.m. I was still awake, editing maintenance logs. The camera buzzed. Caroline. I almost didn't answer, but something in her face stopped me. When I opened the door, she didn't speak at first, just stood there in a hoodie she probably thought made her look more approachable. "Do you hate us?" she asked finally. I blinked. "Hate's expensive. I stopped affording that a long time ago." She stepped inside, slowly, like every step might snap the tension we both knew was wrapped around us like fishing wire. Caroline didn't sit. She hovered. "I didn't know you still had the stove receipt," she said, almost like it was a punchline. "I kept everything," I replied. "The receipts, the keys, the debt, the blame." She looked at the floor. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." "No," I said. "It was supposed to be quiet, convenient. I was supposed to disappear after I paid the price for all of you." "I didn't ask you to." "You didn't stop it either." Silence. Then she asked something I didn't expect. "What do you want?" And that was it, wasn't it? What did I want? Not revenge? Not really? What I wanted was acknowledgement. Not a parade, not a payout, just someone in that family to finally say it. "You did more than we ever gave you credit for. We were wrong. You mattered. But people like Caroline don't offer that. Not willingly." So I gave her an answer she'd understand. "I want the building to know the truth," I said. "And I want you to stop pretending you can erase it." She nodded slowly. Then, before she turned to go, she whispered, "Dad knew what he did. He just didn't know how to fix it." "I didn't ask him to fix it," I said. "I just needed him not to leave me holding the rubble." "What would you do if your silence became the only thing they respected?" They left the envelope untouched for 3 days. I know because I watched, not obsessively, but intentionally. You can learn a lot by observing what people don't touch, especially when it has your name on it. Caroline walked around it like it was radioactive. Mom moved it once, onto a side table, then back. Dad didn't look at it at all. Eventually, I stopped watching. I'd already made my move. The rest was just gravity. By Friday, the building's newsletter went out. I edited the lead section, normally reserved for polite reminders about pet leashes and recycling bins. This time I wrote, "We often forget that buildings carry stories. Some are in blueprints, others in echoes, but no wall stands without hands behind it. And sometimes the most permanent structures are the ones people tried to paint over." No names, no specifics. But everyone who needed to understand would. That night, around 10:40 p.m., I got an alert on the security feed. Unauthorized access attempt, rooftop level. I pulled the live camera feed, and there he was, Miles, my brother, leaning over the edge of the railing like he was watching the skyline or waiting for it to give him an answer. I sighed, grabbed my keys. The rooftop was cold. Wind tugged at my sleeves. I stepped into the dim light without making a sound. "You planning to jump or just smoke without Mom knowing?" I said. He startled, turned, then chuckled dryly. "Neither, though the first one sounds less complicated." I didn't smile. "Why are you up here, Miles?" He rubbed his hands together. "I don't know, just needed space and silence, which apparently even that isn't mine now." "You broke into a restricted level," I reminded him. "Yeah, well, didn't think the doorman would care." The word landed heavy, meant to wound, but it didn't. "That's not my title anymore," I said quietly. He looked at me. Really looked. "What is your title, Jamie?" I let the question hang, then answered, "Independent contractor, building operations consultant, property stakeholder." His jaw tightened. "Mom and Dad don't know, do they?" "They do now." He sank onto the bench by the planter box. "You know what freaks them out the most?" I raised an eyebrow. "That you kept going, without them. Like, you disappeared from the family text chain and reappeared with receipts and leverage." "You sound almost impressed." "I'm not," he said. "I'm terrified." I tilted my head. "Of me?" of what it means. If you're not the problem anymore, then maybe they are. That sat between us. A quiet, brutal truth. Then he asked something I hadn't expected. Do you think we ever had a real family? I didn't answer right away. Families don't have to be perfect, I said slowly, but they can't be conditional. He nodded. Yeah, well, ours was a group project, and the grade depended on keeping you quiet. I blinked. That's the first honest thing you've said in years, I murmured. He laughed softly. Don't get used to it. Before we parted, I handed him a card. He flipped it over. A company logo. My name. Tell them you're my referral, I said. You still freelance, right? He stared at the card, then me. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a choice. Back in the elevator, I looked at my reflection. Not smug, not triumphant. Just steady. I wasn't trying to hurt them. But I wasn't going to protect them from their reflection anymore either. When someone stops seeing you as the problem, do they finally see themselves? The problem with truth is, it doesn't knock. It doesn't ask for permission or check to see if the timing is right. It just shows up, loud, uninvited, and usually in front of the exact people who worked the hardest to bury it. On Tuesday morning, the building manager sent out a memo. Tenant Spotlight, Unit 1003, Restoration Recognition and Historical Contribution. It was meant to be a soft feature, something that ran monthly, highlighting residents who had contributed to the building's design, culture, or legacy. No one ever really read it. Until this one. I didn't write it myself. That would have been too obvious. I asked Maritza, the desk coordinator, if she'd passed the submission I found in the system to marketing. She didn't ask questions, just handed it off with a smirk that told me she understood more than she let on. The article was short, professional, no bitterness, no personal jabs. It simply stated that Unit 1003 had undergone a major redesign before sale, and those renovations had increased the property value by 18%. The designer? A then-resident creative contractor named Jamie Carter. It listed the upgrades, the permits, the archived photos, stove, lighting, custom shelving. I attached the inspection number, the public record, nothing private, nothing defamatory, just facts. By noon, 3 residents had forwarded the email back to the front desk asking, "Is this the same Jamie who works with your team?" By 3 p.m., someone from the board replied, "She should speak at next month's community brunch." And by 4:17, I received a call. "Jamie," my dad's voice on the line, low and clipped, "you need to take that down." I didn't flinch. "It's a newsletter," I said. "It's factual. There's nothing to take down." "It's causing embarrassment." "For who?" Silence. Then, "This isn't what family does." "No," I said softly. "Family doesn't erase people. Family doesn't take what isn't theirs and call it inconvenience when the bill shows up. You're blowing this out of proportion." "Am I? Or are you just not used to me having the mic?" That night, I went to the gym to clear my head. It was late, close to closing, and mostly empty. As I laced up my shoes, someone stepped onto the treadmill next to me. Angela, penthouse floor, divorced at 42, in her second life now. Business coach by day, occasional Pilates evangelist by night. We'd spoken in passing. Her dog liked me. That helped. "You're the Jamie," she said, not a question. "I'm a Jamie," I replied. She laughed. "No, you're that Jamie, the newsletter girl, the one who apparently designed half the unit they're renting without getting credit." I nodded once. "I was, still am technically." She glanced over, slowed her pace. "Good for you. You know how rare that is? Owning your story like that." I looked at her, unsure if I wanted the conversation, but she wasn't done. "You have no idea how many women in this building have given too much to people who said, 'We'll make it right later.' And later never comes." I didn't speak, just watched the numbers tick upward on the screen in front of me. Angela reached into her pocket and handed me a folded card. "Call me. I'm hosting a women's leadership panel here next month. I want you on it." I stared at the card long after she left. My name had always been in documents, in invoices, in forgotten folders and contracts no one thought I'd keep. Now it was in inboxes, conversations, Rooms I'd never been invited into before, and all I did was stop waiting to be invited. At 10:02 p.m., Caroline knocked on the door of the back office. She didn't come in, just stood there like she didn't know whether to apologize or accuse me of something. "We're leaving," she said. I waited. She continued. "Mom wants to go back to the lake house. Says she's had enough of the city. Miles is already packing." "Okay," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. "Was this your plan the whole time?" "No," I said honestly. "But it was bound to happen. Sooner or later, the truth was going to find its way upstairs." Caroline's jaw clenched. "Do you feel better now?" "No," I said. "I feel visible. That's different." She nodded once. Not agreement, just acknowledgement. "Goodbye, Jamie," she said. And for the first time, she used my name like it belonged in her mouth. The apartment was quiet. Not just empty. Quiet in the way a room becomes after something breaks inside it, and no one sweeps the pieces. Unit 1003 had been cleared out by the afternoon. Their rental period ended, and no one extended it. No dramatic exits, no final confrontation, just bags rolled into elevators and silence left behind. They didn't say goodbye, and I didn't wait for one. A week passed. Then another. The building settled back into rhythm. Dog walkers at 7. Amazon deliveries by noon. Elevator chit-chat at 5. But something shifted. The staff smiled longer when they passed me. Residents started asking my opinion on more than just maintenance. Someone left a thank you card on my desk with a handwritten note. "Thank you for the way you handled everything. Quiet power is still power. PH, Unit 17. I didn't know who PH was, but I kept the note. Angela's event happened that Thursday. I didn't want to go, not really. I told her I had work, deadlines, things to manage. She told me to bring my laptop and come anyway. "You don't need a speech," she said. "You are the point." So I went. The conference room on the 20th floor had floor-to-ceiling glass windows that turned Manhattan into watercolor. Warm light poured in as 30 women settled into chairs with name tags and little glasses of rosé. Angela introduced me as a woman who turned erasure into architecture. I didn't correct her. When it was my turn, I didn't speak from paper, I just told the truth. I used to think if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, kept giving, even without being asked, that eventually someone would see me, that love or loyalty or credit would follow. But the thing is, invisibility feeds itself. The less you ask for, the more they assume you don't need. I paused. I didn't stop loving my family. I stopped shrinking for them. There was silence, the kind that doesn't feel empty. Then someone clapped, then more. Angela smiled like she already knew this would happen. After the panel, I stayed behind, packed up slowly, looked out at the city from that impossible height. My phone buzzed. A notification from the building app, Suite 14B, lease finalized. I smiled. It was mine now. Not just the job, not just the unit, the floor, the future. The next morning I moved into 14B. Sunlight spilled across polished floors I didn't have to clean unless I wanted to. The smell of fresh paint. My books, my furniture, no hand-me-downs, no signatures I had to ask permission for. I stood by the window and watched a family across the street setting up for a barbecue. A little girl taped balloons to a railing while her dad pretended not to notice. It made me ache for something and feel free from it at the same time. I pulled the curtains closed, not to block the light, just because I could. I don't know where my family is now. They haven't reached out. Maybe they're back at the lake house. Maybe they're rewriting the story again, this time with less room for guilt. That's fine. Let them write whatever version helps them sleep. I have my own now. And this one starts with a woman who was told she was too poor to be part of her family's story, and ended up owning the page they tried to erase her from. Sometimes, the hardest part of healing isn't the pain. It's realizing that the people who hurt you may never say sorry. And even if they do, it might come too late. Or not at all. What matters more is how you choose to move forward. I used to think being good meant staying small, that being quiet earned love. But the truth is, silence doesn't keep the peace. It keeps you invisible. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt erased, left out, or treated like your worth was conditional, Let this be your reminder. You don't need permission to take up space. You don't need approval to start over. You only need the courage to stop shrinking. What would your life look like if you stopped waiting for them to understand and started building something without them? If this story touched something in you, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from or what part hit home the most. And hey, if you didn't like it, I still want to hear your side. Let's talk. If you're here and still watching, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next story. Your story might be next.